Hey guys, this is Sports with Dylan. Tomorrow is the start of NHL free agency, which means that today I'm going to tell you the best destination for the top 20 NHL free agents. Kicking off this list, we have Carson Soucy, the Kraken defenseman. He has been quite the good defenseman these past couple of years. Although he isn't a superstar guy, he's a solid second or third line defenseman, and many teams would be thankful to have him. I think the best destination for Soucy would be the Florida Panthers, due to the fact that Aaron Ekblad and Brandon Montour could be missing time in the fall, as well as the fact that there's still kind of a void that Mackenzie Weegar left from when he was traded a year ago. So they still could use some defender to slot into that role. And Radko Gudas is set to be an unrestricted free agent as well. So it all lines up. The Panthers should go for Carson Soucy. Luke Schenn was mediocre for the longest time. He was never great. He was on Vancouver. He's just fine. And then suddenly this year, when the entire Vancouver team is crap, Luke Schenn plays pretty solidly. Sure, he wasn't a superstar or anything, but he wasn't a bad defender, and he was on a good contract, which caused him to get traded to the Toronto Maple Leafs, where he performed even better. He was one of their best defensemen, especially throughout the playoffs. So I think he'll be in for probably even a pay raise, and I'm not sure the Maple Leafs will be able to afford him, which means that I think he will go to the Dallas Stars. After superstar Miro Heiskanen, they're still kind of lacking. They don't have anyone, especially after John Klingberg departing last year. They don't have any superstars right around there. So I think it would be very smart if the Stars were to invest in a defenseman, such as Luke Schenn. Joonas Karispalo was awful. He had multiple years where he'd lost his job in Columbus to Elvis Merzlikins. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. And then, slowly, this year, he came out of nowhere and played really well, frankly. Well enough that he was traded to the Los Angeles Kings, who desperately needed a goalie at the deadline. But then once the playoffs came, he started playing awfully. I just can't see him returning to the Kings. In fact, I think the best destination for him would be the New Jersey Devils. Vitek Vanacek is a solid goalie, but it wouldn't be a bad thing to bring in a bit more competition for him and Akira Schmid to see who can truly be the starting goalie they need. Matt Dumba has had a falling out with the Wild. I thought he was going to get traded at the deadline. I even put him on my list, I think. But he never did. I still cannot see him returning. So I suspect he will go to Detroit. Detroit could use another defenseman after trading away Philip Hronek, which was an amazing deal for them, but they still need a new defenseman, especially if this team really wants to compete this year, which I think they have it in them. I think if they put it all together, they should be able to be a playoff team. Evan Rodriguez was cheap on the Penguins, where he played quite well, but he went rather unnoticed, and ended up becoming a free agent last year, where he wasn't re-signed by Pittsburgh, which was surprising. He actually sat in the free agency period for a while, until finally the Avalanche picked him up, where once again, he played quite well. This year, I think he got noticed a bit more, and should be in for quite the pay raise. I think he would be the perfect fit for a team like the Capitals, someone that likes to invest in guys like this. They went for Connor Brown last year, and Dylan Strome, who wasn't a free agent, but they still went for him, as well as Sonny Milano, who turned out quite well for them as well. So this is the kind of thing, the kind of person the Capitals seem to like to invest in. So I think this would be a great deal for them. With Joonas Karispalo likely leaving, that means that the Kings desperately need a goalie. I suspect they'll make a trade for the goalie. It's possible the Devils do the exact same thing, but if they don't, Semyon Varlamov would be an amazing option because he has been quite the backup behind Ilya Sorokin. He's not quite up there with Sorokin, but he's not a bad goalie either. He is pretty darn good, so it would be wise for someone to at least give him the opportunity to start this year. Same thing as the Kings. Senators desperately need a goalie. Cameron Talbot just didn't work out. He'll be an unrestricted free agent, but he's not getting another starting role. Anton Forsberg tore both his ACLs, so he might not even be available for the start of the season. We'll see what happens there. But Senators need a reliable goalie, especially if they want to compete. And I think they might trade for one, but if not, Frederik Andersen would be a great option. He was always solid in Carolina and in Toronto, so it would be wise to just keep him. A year ago, John Klingberg bet on himself that he was going to get even better with the one-year deal with the Ducks, of all teams. Turns out, the Ducks sucked, as well as John Klingberg. At the deadline, he was traded to the Wild, where he improved a bit, but still not enough. Which means that his contract will be significantly cheaper this next time around. I think the best destination for Klingberg will be to the Devils, given that they had to trade away Damon Severson because he wasn't going to come back to them. And Ryan Graves is also set to be an unrestricted free agent. Luke Hughes should be making the NHL, but we don't know for sure how well he's going to play in his first season. So it'd be wise to invest in someone next to Dougie Hamilton. Blake Wheeler, the longtime Jets player and captain, was bought out today. I suspect he'll return home at free agency and go to the Minnesota Wild. That is if he doesn't retire. The Penguins weren't a bad team this past year. They really hadn't. So why not give them just a bit of an offensive boost and see if they can make it to the playoffs this time around with Alexander Killorn. This really isn't a question of where Patrice Bergeron is going to sign. Let's face it, there's no way he's leaving Boston. Unless he retires. So it's really, is he going to retire? Which I think he might. But it depends if he thinks the team will win the Cup next year or not. If not, he's returning to the Bruins. If not being, if he decides not to retire, not if they're not going to win the Cup. Dmitry Orlov is another Bruins free agent, but I don't think they'll be able to re-sign him. And I suspect the best destination for him would be the Carolina Hurricanes. They're lacking a bit on defense, and Brent Burns is 40 years old coming up, so it would make sense to invest in someone slightly younger, but still very solid on the defense. Okay, this is the last Bruins free agent you're going to see. Tyler Bertuzzi actually didn't have that great of a season statistically, but he got well known because he went to the Bruins from the Red Wings at the trade deadline, and he didn't play badly there. He did get quite a few assists. I think the best destination for Bertuzzi is actually interesting. I suspect he will go to the Sabres. They could use just a bit of goal-scoring help, so it makes sense to add someone that can truly do that. Matt Duchene was also bought out just a couple of hours ago. He was a long-time great player for the Predators, but I think it would be wise for him to go to a contender, such as the Carolina Hurricanes. They're likely to lose Max Pacioretty, who didn't make this list due to the injuries this past year. As well as the fact that we don't know if Andrei Svechnikov is going to be fully healthy for the season start, and we don't know who's going to get injured next year. So it makes sense to add one more goal-scoring forward. When you have something good, even if it's not the best, you should hold on to it. That is especially the case in the NHL with goalies. It's not very often that you come of someone, even of Tristan Jarry's caliber. He might not be the best goalie in the league, but he's not that bad either. So it would make sense for the Penguins to hold on to him for a couple more years. I thought about it. I thought about putting Michael Bunting to the Penguins here just because of all the Kyle Dubas speculation. But I can't see him doing it. I don't think he loved Bunting as a player, honestly, from what I've been reading. And also, I don't know. I just don't think the Penguins are in that place to invest a lot in a young forward like that. But you know who is? Would be the Seattle Kraken, who made the playoffs this year, surprisingly, and did quite well. So it makes sense to add another goal-scoring forward to add more to this team. I talked about this last year, and the Islanders did nothing to address it until the deadline. The Islanders still need help on the offense. It's gotten better with Bo Horvat as well as Matt Barzal, but they could still use just a bit more, and I think Max Domi would be the perfect addition. Ryan O'Reilly was born in Toronto. That is why he wanted to be traded there in the first place. And Toronto is a solid team that is looking to win a Stanley Cup and could use center help, so I can't see Ryan O'Reilly leaving. The Avalanche did just trade for Ryan Johansson, but they're still lacking, with JT Compher about to leave, Nazem Kadri having left last year, Gabriel Landeskog out for the entire season, Evan Rodriguez about to leave. This team could use a bit more on offense, so why not add a superstar in Vladimir Tarasenko? How the heck did Patrick Kane make it to the top of this list? I don't know, but when you look at it, he actually had probably the best season amongst free agents, in my opinion. Although, he did just get hip surgery and will be out for the next 4 months. Same surgery as Nicklas Backstrom got, and he looked like a shell of himself this past season. So, no one's really sure what will happen to Patrick Kane. I'm not necessarily sure he'll even get signed until he proves that he's healthy. But I suspect if he does get signed, he will return to New York. Because that is where he's from. That is where he clearly wanted to be traded. And since New York's likely to lose one of him or Tarasenko, and I suspect that'll be Tarasenko because he'll be more expensive, why not just go and add someone like Kane, just to keep it together a bit more, and hopefully Kane can bounce back. But we'll have to see tomorrow how this all goes. I'm kind of disappointed because my favorite team, the Edmonton Oilers, didn't really have anyone that suited them on this list. But I do hope they make a signing tomorrow, and I'm sure none of these will probably be correct. But we'll have to see. For now, thanks for watching.